Welcome to the channel where we attempt to fix centuries of historical confusion, with nothing but sarcasm and mild contempt. America, 1600 to 1650. A glorious era when Europeans decided, hey, let's sail across the ocean, starve for a year, and argue about God while freezing our butts off. Sounds fun, right? Europeans called it colonization. We call it everyone did everything wrong, but somehow survived long enough to keep arguing. Get ready to meet Pilgrims who made awkwardness an art form, Puritans who invented fun-hating, explorers who somehow thought guessing was a solid navigation strategy, and Native Americans nervously watching Europeans reinvent chaos. By 1600, Europe was basically like, we've got maps, we've got ships, we're bored. Let's go ruin someone else's day. The finance bros of Europe, Spain, England, France, they all wanted a piece of the new world. And by peace, they meant land, gold, and occasionally enslaving people. Enter King James I of England, who thought, let's start a colony in America. His plan? Give money to a bunch of investors, call it the Virginia Company, and hope someone finds gold. Or maybe just some real estate. Basically, business casual meets bad reality TV. In 1607, the English land at Jamestown. Translation: happily march into mosquito-infested swamps, play dodge the disease, and hope you're not mistaken for a Bloody Mary garnish. All in the name of civilization, which apparently comes with a side of mud and regret. Jamestown wasn't exactly a luxury retreat. More like Survivor, swamp apocalypse. Starvation? Oh, check. Disease buffet? Check. Neighbors auditioning for Who Wants to Eat a Friend? Also check. Yes, someone literally ate a dead body. Civilization called, they want their manners back. The Powhatan Confederacy, the local Native American rulers, were like, hi, we'll feed you and teach you how to survive. Very polite. The settlers? Probably somewhere between thank you and wait, can we enslave you? But not quite yet. We're still in the first decade of politish genocide. Then there's John Smith, basically the world's first scolding camp counselor. He that will not work shall not eat. Modern HR would have a field day with this guy. Everyone came to Jamestown dreaming of gold. They didn't find any. Instead, they stumbled onto tobacco, which somehow worked out as a business model and made Jamestown slightly less miserable. John Rolfe was essentially the guy who accidentally invented America's first billion-dollar crop. Thanks, nicotine. Meanwhile, the French are chilling in Canada, the Spanish are doing their usual conquest and murder thing in Florida and the Southwest, and the English are screaming at mosquitoes. Apparently, Europe decided to play real-life Risk with America, and nobody really read the instructions. In September of 1620, 102 English passengers boarded the ship, the Mayflower, bound for America. These were the Pilgrims, a group of religious extremists who decided England was too sinful, so they crossed the Atlantic to make a new society that was still extremely judgmental. This intrepid group of holy rollers were crammed in a ship that was basically a floating sardine can with wood rot. They had food, water, and dreams. Mostly dreams. The voyage took 66 days, during which seasickness became the colony's unofficial Olympic sport. Also, imagine debating with your spouse over who forgot to pack the salted pork while the ship rocks like a roller coaster from hell. Land was sighted in November of 1620 near Cape Cod, Massachusetts. But before they went ashore, these pilgrims did something kind of revolutionary. And not just brewing bad ale. They wrote the Mayflower Compact, a little piece of paper that basically says, we agree to try not to murder each other and to make some laws. Democracy in action, folks. Or at least an early draft of don't be a jerk. Because nothing screams freedom like signing a contract while your hands are freezing off and half your crew is dead. Now, New England winters are downright brutal. They had no electricity, no Wi-Fi, and apparently no common sense. Half the colony died the first winter. But hey, at least they had each other, right? Nothing brings people together like shared frostbite and scurvy. They somehow survived thanks to the locals. The Wampanoag people, led by Chief Massasoit, taught the Pilgrims how to fish, farm, and stop nearly killing themselves by eating poisonous plants. Thanks, guys. The Pilgrims actually started out on decent terms with the local indigenous people, probably because they were desperate for help. Chief Massasoit signed a treaty and kept the peace for decades. Yes, decades. Which is a miracle if you're familiar with colonial history. Life in Plymouth wasn't exactly a non-stop buffet of handshakes and kumbayas. Nope. They had to build houses, grow their own food, and pray. Like, constantly. Every little hiccup was a cosmic scandal. Corn didn't grow. Obviously, God has a personal vendetta. Someone sneezed indoors. Apocalypse incoming. Basically, the whole colony was one giant anxiety spiral, fueled by holy panic and an impressive lack of chill. We should probably mention the first Thanksgiving, that mythical feast where everyone held hands, smiled, and was grateful. In reality, the 1621 harvest feast probably looked less Norman Rockwell and more awkward potluck with guns and mutual suspicion. The Pilgrims didn't even call it Thanksgiving. That name came later. So the next time someone says, they invented Thanksgiving, just remember, they invented survival first, pumpkin pie second. Imagine risking your life crossing the Atlantic in a leaky wooden boat, not for gold, not for adventure, but because the people around you weren't religious correctly. Welcome to early 17th century America. The Puritans didn't come to America to escape rules. That's a myth. They came because England didn't have enough rules, or at least not the right ones. In 1630, they founded the Massachusetts Bay Colony with a very inspirational goal, to build a city upon a hill, which sounds poetic, but really meant everyone will be watching us, so no pressure, just eternal judgment. This was not a society built on vibes. Life revolved around work, prayer, discipline, and making sure your neighbor wasn't enjoying themselves too much. Education was encouraged, not for creativity, but so people could read the Bible and know exactly why they were in trouble. Individuality was tolerated in the same way a Puritan tolerated fun, which is to say, not at all. Then Roger Williams showed up and ruined the mood. Williams suggested a couple of ideas that were apparently too spicy for the 1630s. Religion should be a personal choice, and Native Americans deserve fair treatment. The Puritan leadership reacted with the emotional maturity of a group chat admin and banished him into the wilderness. Because nothing says Christian values like exile in the middle of winter. Roger Williams survived, out of pure spite, presumably, and founded Rhode Island in 1636. A colony built on religious tolerance, separation of church and state, and the radical belief that people should mind their own business. Massachusetts hated that. While New England was busy counting sins and inventing new ways to feel guilty about breathing, the Chesapeake colonies were worshipping something far more divine: tobacco. Yes, the miracle plant that turned dirt into dollars faster than you could say, "Oops, I enslaved a whole generation." Virginia and Maryland discovered that tobacco equals money. Lots of it. Enough money to excuse just about anything, including forcing humans into backbreaking labor while smiling politely and calling it enterprise. Plantations exploded, landowners strutted around like peacocks with political power, and poor settlers got the deluxe package: endless work, awful conditions, and existential dread for dessert. Enter the indentured servants, bright-eyed folks who thought signing a contract might lead to opportunity. Surprise! It mostly led to exhaustion, constant risk of death, and the crushing realization that contractual obligation apparently didn't come with healthcare or vacation days. But wait. The colonists weren't done being innovative. When they realized human labor was in short supply, they came up with a truly timeless idea: enslave Africans. Not by accident, not temporarily, not as a maybe we'll rethink this situation. No, this was profit-driven, permanent, morally catastrophic genius. So yeah, that decision, A+ for historical horror, definitely did not age like fine wine, more like spoiled milk. By the late 1640s, Native Americans were watching their land vanish like a magician's rabbit. Except this trick involved violence, lies, and broken promises. As European settlements sprawled, indigenous peoples were shoved off their own land with all the subtlety of a toddler throwing a tantrum, through wars, treaties that lasted about as long as a Snapchat story, and promises that were only convenient until they weren't. Colonists were big on peace, mainly when they needed help, and suddenly allergic to it the second it wasn't useful. Then came disease. Smallpox and other epidemics tore through native communities like an uninvited party crasher on steroids, killing entire populations. Resistance faltered. Societies collapsed. Basically, 17th century biological warfare with zero subtlety. Colonists looked around, shrugged, and declared, "Hey, this land seems empty." It wasn't empty. They just did the emptying themselves. By 1650, England got distracted by the English Civil War, which is history's way of saying, Mum and Dad are fighting, so the kids are doing whatever they want. With England too busy across the ocean, the colonies decided to run the show themselves. Town meetings sprouted like weeds in a neglected garden. Local assemblies formed. Courts appeared because apparently yelling at your neighbors wasn't enough. England technically had authority, but let's be real, the colonies were already freelancing independence without sending in the TPS reports. This was Freedom 1.0, glitchy, messy, and prone to crashes. Features included random laws that made no sense, surprise taxes that felt like betrayal, and moral panics so ridiculous they'd trend on social media if it existed. At the midpoint of the 17th century, America wasn't one place. It was a poorly organized group project. New England was the hall monitor of the continent. Religious, strict, judgmental, and somehow morally outraged at everything. The South had cash, crops, and cruelty. If profit were a person, it would have been sitting in a rocking chair with a whip. Human labor was part of the business plan, and subtlety was not included. Other colonies experimented with tolerance, trade, and governance, sometimes accidentally doing the right thing. These regions developed distinct personalities, and surprise, those differences would later clash spectacularly. History's way of saying, you're welcome for the drama. So that's America from 1600 to 1650, a bunch of people who fled oppression, just to oppress everyone else in slightly different ways. Power grabs? Check. Moral panic? Check. Chaos? Absolutely. And honestly, that's the legacy. So if you're upset about modern America, just remember, the chaos was installed at the factory. No returns, no refunds. If you enjoyed this train wreck of sarcasm, bad calls, and history gone horribly wrong, like, subscribe, and join us next time as we take a look at the period of 1650 to 1700, when colonists proved that with enough guilt, sermons, and alcohol, they could survive anything, including each other.